What's up, guys? Max, have you not taken your jersey out since yesterday? No, I just didn't pack a lot of clothes, and they give you 4 jerseys and a hoodie, probably to trick you into just wearing the jersey more. They really like you when you wear the jersey because all the sponsors are happy and stuff. So over time, they just start giving you more, so it's just the only clothes you have. Don't you live down the road? Yeah, I have some watching my house, though, so I'll go there when I want to, but I've just been around here. I just want to hang out with my friends. Did you have a nice sleep? No. I stayed up till 7 a.m. and I had to wake up at noon to do like content. So I slept for 5 hours and I am probably in need of like a lot of sleep. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of pushing through right now. We'll see. But we're feeling good. Max, has your voice recovered at all? No, not really. I'm sure it will soon, though. You must feel awesome? Yeah. Yeah, I feel great. Right? Everything's great. I mean, win or lose, I'm pretty sure this is the coolest shit that, like, at least in our 20s, 30s, 40s, like, none of us will do anything cooler than getting paid money and flown to facilities and given private chef food to, like, play video games together. You know what I mean? Like, that's, like... It's peak fucking insane. And our flights were scheduled for like this morning, but yesterday they rescheduled them. So like everyone's flying out Tuesday. So you get to like hang out for a few days after. It's beautiful. Having a really good time. I'm like really happy. So who is your MVP this tier? Oh, there's a lot of people who did great. I don't think it's ever possible to like figure that out, really. All the people who were great for us this tier have been great for a long time. Who on the roster was it a first win for? Great question. Must have been Boomy for sure. He's new. Exile's been in the guild when we've won, but maybe he wasn't in on the boss. Dazer? Oh yeah, big Dazer. Yeah, first one for Dazer. Thoughts on the progress of Echo? Yeah, I was watching them earlier. I thought they were gonna kill it, and then they went for it. Respected that. Respected the push for the kill there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have too many thoughts on it. Pretty much every single day this raid, they went to bed without achieving what we had achieved the previous day, and that happened again. So that's just been happening for 2 straight weeks. Echo's lusting in P1. Yeah, they're lusting some people in P1. We thought about that. I actually hate that. Like, that makes me want to blow up. Like, having to wait minutes before you pull is you would have to be convinced that that's the only way you could kill it for me to ever do that. It's so annoying. It actually ruins your momentum. At least this boss isn't that bad with it. You only have to wait like 2 minutes. Some bosses you have to wait like 4 to do like a proper healer lust or something. How do you feel about the raid tuning? I mean, it was obviously like, it was probably a little overtuned. I tweeted that today. I was like, bro, they need to... Here. I was like, they need to nerf this fucking raid right away. Or the amount of annoying, like, Asmongold viewers... Like, Asmongold will have a take, like, 2 months from now, and it's just gonna be like, the reason the game is bad now is because they just make the game for the Racer World first. And then, like, everyone's gonna look at these crazy hard bosses that weren't nerfed, and they, like, made them way too hard initially, which we agree with, and then they're, like, blame it on us. And I have to deal with all these fucking Asmongold fans, and I don't want to do that. It's fucking... Every time I have to do that, it's fucking annoying. Like, every time, you know? Yeah, dear God, just fucking nerf it, please. Yeah, look at the, like, kill stats. Where can you see this for bosses? Yeah, here. Look at this. Has that number ever been true? Where the last boss has been killed by 1 guild, and only 5 people have killed 2 bosses beforehand? That's insane. Brood Twister is the 5th boss. And 40 guilds have killed it in 2 weeks. That is, like, obviously overtuned. Like, no question. That being said, I don't think they did it on purpose. Well, I mean, they make Queen Ansurek as hard as it is on purpose, for sure. But Brood Twister and Nexus Princess were a complete accident. Like, you could tell that Brood Twister was, like, mechanically too hard, and they nerfed the fuck out of it. But Nexus Princess even... I know Blizzard is sad that tuning was as hard as it was and it required like 1 tanking and stuff like that, but even mechanically, regardless of numbers, mechanically this boss is actually crazy. Like, it is insanely hard. So, yeah. I think they probably need to nerf the fuck out of this shit. Actually, Silken Court's pretty fair, I think, for a second to last boss. But this boss is way too hard. This boss is still way too hard. Doing these without 2 times Prez is also brutal. Yeah, it's probably the most broken HPS healer that's, like, relative to other healers in either a long time or probably ever. I think Disc might have been more broken in Oldier, but that's really accounting for the damage they were doing, probably. If you take out the damage element, I think it's easily Preservation currently. Max, what was a more dominant victory, this or Nyalotha? I don't know. I mean, I guess the answer would just be the one where we won by the longest amount of time. I don't know. And the race isn't over yet, so... Or, like, the second, what you would compare isn't... We don't know yet, but... I don't know. I honestly don't know why we, like, completely obliterated everyone this tier. I was asked this in an interview earlier, and I just... Like, I don't feel like we did anything different. Or that we were, like, noticeably better than we've been. We just were the same. I don't know. Well, I wouldn't say, like, we're the same. Like, obviously we're better, but, like... Our approach was the same. It's not like usually if you were to see, like if you were to ask me last year if any guild in the next 5 years would win by as much as we won this tier from guild number 1 to guild number 2 with how good Echo and us are, I would have told you no. Like I would bet money that would never happen, right? So I don't understand why we won by as much as we did, because if that ever were to happen, you would assume that we found something super OP or like something massively went wrong for their team that you could point to, or there's some kind of mentality shift or like preparation difference, but none of that is true. Like we didn't prepare any differently. We just did the same thing. Terra's land diff? Yeah. Does it worry since you won by so much you won't try to find improvements for next time? No, we've won a lot before and lost a lot before and have gone through the, like, okay, so we've lost a lot, and every time you lose, you obviously are like, okay, what did we do wrong to get better? And I remember the first time we won, and I don't think we tried to improve as much, because you get complacent. Not really complacent, but you're like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. But not really, but you get what I mean, right? Like, what am I trying to say? Like, it's objectively easier to improve after a loss than a win because it's hard to, like, improve on things that worked, I guess. But we've already gone through that before, so I'm not worried about that. I feel like we'll just approach everything that we felt like we could have done better regardless of winning or losing, you know? How surprised were you those first few days that no other guild was leapfrogging you? Most races, when you go to sleep, you are ahead. When you wake up, you're behind, but not in this race. Yeah, that does always happen. Yeah, I mean, I noticed it early in the... Okay, so I noticed this in Amir Drasil, actually. In Amir Drasil, we were just ahead, just like we were ahead in this raid, like, until the end of the raid. The same thing is happening until we're on Fyrak. And then in Fyrak, they caught up a lot of time massively on that specific boss. So I would say outside of specifically Fyrak, it has felt that way for, like, 2 to 3 tiers now, actually. But yeah, it was weird. I don't know. Like, you just get used to, like, here's the deal. Like, if you know that a guild, or let's just say there are 2 guilds that are identical in skill level. And I think us and Echo have been extremely close in skill level for years. That's what makes the Race World First really fun. If you do a 15-hour raid and you're ahead, regardless of what guild it is, the next guild's going to wake up, do a 15-hour day with everything that you found out, and they're going to do what you did in 15 hours and 12 hours, and then progress a little more, and that's how it works, right? So the only way you can, like, outpace someone while setting the pace, well, what I just said makes no sense. How you can, like, still keep gaining a lead on someone while they are, like, catching a draft from you, basically, is you just have to be significantly better, right? And even in a lot of those other races, like, eventually the bosses at the end especially are so strat reliant that you kind of just can't really pull ahead. But this year, yeah, I don't know, man. We just, like, every day we just started getting used to waking up, and not only did we get used to waking up, we went to bed, like, confidently knowing that they were not even going to pass our current best when we woke up, and that they were probably not even going to end their day better than where we ended our day. And it was just like that the whole rate. So, I don't know. I mean, it's fucking sweet, honestly, because, like, the worst part of the race for me is that sinking pit in your stomach when you wake up, where you're like, you know that the guild should progress more than you because they have more information than you did when you progressed earlier that day. And then you're like, not terrified, but you're like nervous to look at your phone when you wake up to see just how far they got. Like, oh, I hope they didn't kill this boss. Oh, I hope they're not like super far ahead of us now. Because you want them to be adequately ahead of you so you can yoink a little information and then they go to bed and then you slingshot. That's perfectly ideal. When you wake up, it is not ideal to be in the lead. Well, I guess if you always wake up in the lead, you'll win. But like, you want to be behind, but like a little behind. You don't want to be like majorly behind. That's a bad sign, right? So we would wake up and like that feeling just never happened this raid. I never went to bed or woke up like nervous. I don't know. And that was sweet. That like made it really easy to keep on doing this shit. Was it there was one day where they passed you on Silken Court? Yeah, so the reason that happened is when we were progressing on Sunday on Silken Court, we decided to do our 3 to 4 hours of Mythic Plus we needed to do before the reset on Sunday. So we just lost 3 to 4 hours of progression that night. And whenever they killed Ky'veza when they woke up, they just didn't do that and just progressed hours more of Silken Court than we did. And then on their last day of the reset, they did their Mythic Plus. That was the only reason that happened even. Was just changing when you're doing your chores. Were you nervous during the extended maintenance? Not nervous, but like annoyed. I don't know. There's nothing else about maintenance that is, it's just annoying. Like, obviously we would all like to start playing at the same time. This tier, we started, or the release time differences between NA and EU are 12 hours. We had 2 5-hour maintenances during our reset times that EU had 0 of, right? So now it's like down to 2 hours. Well, so that made me think after we're both done with our reclears the second week, and there's no like instantly killing a boss after the reset with a new eye levels of gear or whatever, you know, they're playing from 12 hours behind, but they have also played 10 hours more relatively than us because of that maintenance. So to me, that's like pretty fucking, even if you want to argue, and I don't know if this is a good argument, but if you wanted to argue that starting from behind is no more of an efficient raid day, that's all fake news. It's just NA propaganda. There's 0 gain Echo gets by starting second. Okay, if you want to even say that, let's just use that argument. The most you could ever argue is that we had a 2-hour lead this tier, right? Because of the maintenance. I still like, it doesn't feel like that because none of the European nationalists that like follow this are ever going to, they did not use logic or reason to get to the conclusion they got to. You know, you're not going to convince them, right? So like it's annoying because people will always just tell you that you're playing like 3 days ahead of EU or something because they just don't understand this shit at all. And it's just annoying as fuck to have to deal with that. I would infinitely rather to obviously have a global release, but I would just rather never hear from those people ever again, you know? Also, it's been like so many years now. It's just like so fucking annoying. You should have seen Echo's stream chats after the kill. I don't need to see it. I've lived it on the other side. In fact, we have a unique situation, especially in the past, where I have the most viewers than our guild channel. So all that fucking slanderous hate that gets slung at Echo or any team when they lose due to NAEU tribalism, that gets slung directly at me, man. I know exactly what that's like. I fucking tank that shit. I know exactly what was probably happening in that channel. And I don't condone or endorse anyone doing that, by the way, because I fucking hate getting it myself, and I think it's shitty. I don't like those fans. I wish they didn't do that. I wish the other fans didn't do that to me. But it is what it is. So if you're asking me, like, did I see it? No. But I know exactly what that's like. And it sucks. Yeah. Max, did you guys see the Method Silken Court kill? Well, yeah, they stayed up so late that we were awake. And I think on that day we were doing, like, chores before the end of the... Or no, we were doing splits at the beginning of our reset. So we were able to... I was able to, like... I think I watched them kill it. Yeah, it was cool. I don't know if it was smart for them to do that, but it was definitely admirable and pretty fucking hype, so that's cool. Did Driney get his hug? Bro, he was the first person I ran to. I hugged Driney passionately. with passion. Do you think Method will take second? No. Echo will wake up and kill that boss real fast, I think. Any opinion on Echo using Boomkin and Paladin tank instead of Guardian Druid? What do you want my opinion on? Like, do you want me to tell you why that makes sense strategically? Because that's kind of interesting. Or do you want me to tell you whether I think that's better? I mean, you probably don't want that because like, the answer is I don't think it's better because we didn't do it, you know? But, so I guess that one's obvious. So why you play Prop Paladin? So Spell Warding's interesting on that fight, but I don't think they found a lot of, like, cool applications for it. It's mainly just for freedom. So what we did in our strat is we AoE'd roots in the third ones in P1, and we needed, like, kind of 2 Fury Warriors, at least initially in progression, to make that consistent. We consistently did it with only 1 Fury Warrior as well. But, like, that's something that can wipe you. Like, we have wiped to that before. Not often. Maybe 10 wipes ever. But that's 10 wipes, you know? 10 wipes to doing that. So by playing, we were very close to immuning every single root. But to do that, we would have had to play another Rep Paladin, which we didn't have prepared. We have another Rep Paladin player, but they were playing something better than Rep Paladin on the site. Or you'd have to play Prop Paladin, because Prop Paladin and Rep Paladin possess the ability to cast Freedom on another player and gain Freedom themselves. It is the best. When they design a mechanic where everyone in the raid gets rooted and you need to remove a root from everyone in the raid, there's one class that is the best at that, and it is Paladin, because they can cover 2 people for the whole fight. Super broken, right? That's why they did it. And I think it's really smart. Like, when you look at a 400 pull end boss, increasing your P1 consistency from, I'll just make this up, 85% to, like, 87% by changing your tank comp to do the freedom thing, that could be better than having a little bit more damage in the raid. That's how end bosses work. So I understand why they did it, and I think in most tiers, conventionally, that's pretty smart. We thought about that. I just think DPS, I think, like, all specs of Druid are, like, besides Guardian, are, like, unplayably dog shit. So I didn't want to play any of them. So we played Guardian instead. We wouldn't have played Guardian if the other Druid specs weren't horrible. Now, keep in mind, before any of y'all get fucking weird about that, that's at a world first level. The margins we're talking about are extremely tight. With more eye level, and later in this season, you could play fucking 5 Moonkins. You kill any boss, it doesn't matter. But, like, right now, when razor thin margins, playing a DPS Druid is nonsense. It's just bad, I think. That's why we didn't do it. Max, did you consider going dark to conceal the 1 tank strat on Ky'veza? No. There's things to go dark for. And pretty much the only reason to ever go dark is just to waste other guilds' time. So they have to do the same thing you did to, like, fact find, basically. So, like, Echo's not stupid. You know? Like, if they're progressing Ky'veza really well, and they're able to get to the end of the boss, they will also see that the boss is, like, turbo impossible without 1 tanking. So you can't 3-heal it. Or, I mean, maybe you could, be a lot harder. Then you just ask yourself a question, well, can you 1-tank this boss? With battle reses, no. With Ankh Totem, yes. Okay, how hard would it be? Okay, well, you only have 1 battle res, and it's going to be 4 minutes into the fight for anyone else. So no one can die on one of the mechanically hardest bosses ever. But you're telling me there's a chance. So we sat there miserably pulling this boss and resetting it in 1 minute when someone reasonably died to a completely unreasonable encounter. And it was extremely soul-sucking and not fun at all. And then we killed it, and that was great. It was over. And we went to the next one. But yeah, we didn't really consider going dark, no. Max, on week 2, it looked like you guys re-cleared Heroic before re-clearing Mythic. That's not really how re-clearing works, but yeah, we did Heroic splits before Mythic, yep. Most of them. Wouldn't it be better to do the easier bosses on Mythic first to lock in gear rather than Heroic splits so you don't waste gear that gets replaced? That's not really how Heroic splits are done at a high level either, but I don't really want to explain all that. But we did try to get as much gear as possible before re-clearing Ky'veza, because for, like, the first time ever, you've had to re-clear, like, a damage check boss that you Vantis runed on the new reset without Vantis rune. Because even after sending our upgrades, most of our upgrades, and getting a Mythic re-clear and a Vault, our power level only increased by almost identically what Vantis rune gave you. So we were just progressing natty progress Ky'veza. It was just as hard to get a kill then as it was on our first kill. In fact, our boss percentage pushes were almost identical. And it was really hard. And We did good on the reclear, I think, but yeah, I don't know. That boss is not fair. They should nerf it for sure. Max, did you figure out why Ansurek took so much more damage than usual on the killing pull? Yeah, we just beat the shit out of it. I don't know. We just had a good pull. Well, also one other thing happened. I think for the first time in all of progression, none of our casters died before going into the execute burn. And like, by the way, at any point in the fight, because if they die at any point, they're gonna have a fucked up spy masters, right? So here's a boss damage looks like at the end of that fight. Okay, damage done. Let's just look at the lust. Okay, so you just have someone doing 4 million DPS to the boss at the end of the fight, right? So the reason why we did so much damage is just, I mean, everything went right, but also we just didn't have people lose their Spy Master stacks, and that trinket is just absurdly broken. Well, actually, Dankscale died and lost his Spy Master stacks, but yeah. Yeah, a 40 stack Spy Masters and a 250 stack Splinters. Oh man, I wonder how much that would have done. Does like that Splinter shit hit hard as fuck? Like, where would that have been on his breakdown? And the highest eye level in the raid? Yeah, he farms gear. It's unfair. Fury DPS on single target is cooked. It's not great, but we also had them using their cooldowns at different times for other reasons. To carry everyone else so they could use their stuff on the boss. What are your thoughts on the fired up trinket slander shit? Alright, let's talk about this shit. So here's the deal. I understand a lot of the feedback to that. And I think most of it is like completely easy to understand. Like, it was the current climate around bans and exploiting is at a different level than it's ever been, right? Like, the timeline recently was we did the seed exploit for rep in the previous race in Amirdrasil. And they punitively not only took away our rep, but punished us and made it like impossible to get the rep for the race. And we lost some eye level in Amirdrasil because of that. So there were punitive measures, but that was like Blizzard's first, like, don't fucking do this, right? So going into this tier, we didn't exploit rep at all because we just got punished for it. And that sucks. It turns out when you enforce your rules, people are less likely to break them. And if you never enforce them, are they really rules, right? Especially in a competition. So then Echo and Method mainly, but Echo, a few of their players exploited that rep. And then Blizzard was like, all right, y'all fucking Race World first teams are doing this shit again? We're serious, motherfuckers. Take this little ban, right? Okay, so that got everyone all worked up, right? Echo players are probably like, oh, what, we're going to get banned this time? And like, Liquid did it last time and they didn't get banned? I mean, I think that's kind of how punishment scaling works. You know, like, they punished us. It wasn't as extreme as bans, but also a Race to World First Guild exploited rep before a race for the second time in a row. Doesn't it make sense that the second punishment is bigger than the first to kind of prove a point? Like, yeah, I guess it's unlucky you did it second, but you also didn't heed the warning from the last one, right? So it kind of makes sense, but also that's from my side. I could see an opponent feeling differently, right? Just put that out there. Either way, they did it in Heroic Week in a way that I didn't think would really affect the race. They had the same eye level as we did. Maybe they lost some sleep going into the race. That could matter, but regardless, none of this is... I'm just giving you a little background. But regardless, what it did was it changed the climate on exploiting or anything related to an exploit because they have proven that, hey, if you guys exploit... it was kind of specifically rep stuff, but they were like, we're going to ban you, right? They didn't ban anyone in Mythic, but kind of what they were saying was... we'll fucking ban you all in Mythic if you keep fucking around. That's basically what they were saying. I feel like that's the response that all the teams felt. And I think that's what the community felt. But certainly fan bases are going to feel a certain kind of way about that. If you're an Echo fan, right, you are going to feel like Liquid got away with some shit or whatever. So you're just waiting for us to get ours, you know? Like I hope Liquid... fucking, if they do anything wrong, Blizzard better fucking get them. Okay? So the thing leading up to the fired up thing, it's not surprising to me that the community's reaction was what it was, right? And I'm not really surprised that Gingy tweeted it. Like, Gingy kind of has a history with doing stuff like this. And also, I could see from his perspective that he's actually genuinely annoyed. Like, I just got banned. I'm a streamer. I was banned during Heroic Week. That fucked my viewership. I felt like I was letting my team down and whatever, and I got punished for this. And you're telling me this guy is going to do anything that could even remotely be labeled an exploit? We'll get into that for a second. Like live on stream, ain't no way you guys are doing this. And I think the reason why he did that is because, like, I think he knew that they were never going to ban for something like this. And I'll kind of get into that in a second. So I think he was looking for some kind of like, he wanted some social justice to be done. Like, he knew that they're not going to ban for something like that. And I think he just wanted us to, like, feel some kind of pressure or for people to get mad at us. And people definitely got really mad at us. But yeah, also he's done this before. He like accused us of cheating on Anduin, with the orb bug. Obviously deleted that tweet and apologized for it, but I directly felt the heat from those exact fans that were going at Fired Up in the past from something he tweeted really mad during a race. But yeah, I'm just trying to say, so far, I can understand why people were mad. And I majorly think, and to give them some credit, I think it's because the climate was certainly, like, you're going to ask me, do you think it was a good idea to do it? And in hindsight, I'm going to say I don't think it was. And it's purely because the climate around exploiting and exploiting in general has been different. That being said, that was something that happens all the fucking time. Echo pulls Raden and, like, pulls the boss and resets it and keeps a bunch of, like, warlock stacks and then pulls the boss and skips an entire phase of something that we didn't do. I don't even have to give you examples of guilds. There were classes that had a very similar class mechanic, like gaining resources before a pull or something, that are right along the lines of what that kind of thing is, and that kind of thing happens all the time, right? I think what really made people mad was the fact that he was hiding it. And that I actually, for an uninformed, like, Race to World First viewer, or maybe even an informed one, I can see that being the thing that really sets you off. Because you're like, oh, like, this guy's clearly exploiting. Of course he's trying to hide it. Guys, we didn't give an absolute fuck about hiding that from Blizzard. The only reason we would hide anything like that is so our competition who was awake at that time doesn't find it out too. That happens in... Something like that will happen on all kinds of bosses, right? And Echo knows that, and Gingy knows that. But I understand in this specific climate around exploiting that he would be mad about that. And I also think, specifically because of the climate around exploiting, that giving Fired Up the okay to do that was a bad idea. Because, well, I'm just going to be honest with you, because people got super fucking mad about it and slandered a really nice kid that didn't deserve that. And I feel like that's my fault. Because he asked me, and I said do it, because we would do that before, and probably again, and that's the kind of thing that you're doing exactly what the tooltip says. The secret hack, when you, like, if you're ever wondering if something is an exploit, kind of a little hidden tech is if you're just doing exactly what the tooltip says, you're kind of chilling, right? Even if it's like a perfect bug, something that is... It's not even really that strong. It's a 4% DPS increase over Sun Fury, which, by the way, really shows how fucking unbalanced some hero talents are in the game, that you would do that and it's still only 4% better than the other option. But yeah, that kind of thing is pretty normal. I mean, we could have some kind of talk with Blizzard after about that, like, hey, we don't want you guys to ever do this. But that's just something where, like, you can try to find damage on a seemingly unkillable boss at the time before we one-tanked, where that kind of stuff is par for the course, happens all the time before and after that. But that being said, I understand, like, the reaction to it is not surprising to me. And I think it's mainly tribalist fans that are like, my team got fucked for this, and you're telling me that guy's going to keep his account? For doing a couple pulls with a bug that was fixed real quick, which is, like, again, super normal in game and nothing close to, like, exploiting rep. I get it. I get it. Like, it, and I think specifically I think the thing that angered people the most, or at least the argument that I saw people use where they're like, yeah, he's fucking guilty, and it was purely the hiding thing. And that isn't surprising to me, because it does, if you're uninformed with the race, that does look bad. It's like you're trying to get away with cheating from Daddy Blizzard. But really, it's, if you know the race, it's, I don't want them to know, I don't want Echo to know what we're doing, right? I don't want them to do this as well, right? So yeah, I didn't see a ton of the response to it. Oh, and there's another thing too. I think Blizzard's in a weird spot with this, and maybe they want to, like, set some ground rules for all the teams, but it's going to be really, really weird for them to punish any other guild for any, even like remote borderline exploity type thing in game after Fire Rack. Just keeping it a buck. Because that's fucking crazy. Like, they did that shit on an end boss and killed and got a world first end boss with that. And that is, like, fucking mountains more extreme than, like, anything anyone's ever done, right? And they didn't get punished for it. So Blizzard is not... It's kind of tough for them to start enforcing in-raid stuff because we could always just come back and be like, they did that on an end boss and killed it, right? Like, we did 4 pulls on a boss... and it didn't die, right? It's also an extremely minor game. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, I've explained my whole thoughts around it. I'm probably just going to talk about it this one time because it was like a really emotional thing for a lot of people. A lot of people really cared about it. I would just end it by saying I actually kind of understand why it made a lot of people really mad. But also, I think Gingy knew exactly what he was fucking doing. He's done this before with the angry tweet mid-race and sicking his fans on people. I just really, really, really don't like that he did that to Fired Up because he knew the severity of an exploit like that and how unimportant it is. And maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know the kind of reaction that would get, even though this has happened before. But yeah, I didn't like that at all, to be honest with you. That's how I feel about it. How do you feel about driney and THD doing the exact same thing to Method and Echo? Huh? What, the like calling out their rep and stuff? I mean, that's tough. I'll tell you what our initial thinking is with that exploity type shit was we were in this weird spot before the race, right? We saw these guilds exploiting rep and we're not doing it and we're telling our players not to do it because we got punished for it before. And our players are like, is this shit going to get taken away? Because I don't want to like have them roll this shit back and be able to keep everything they got. Because last time when we did, we got that shit taken away. I don't think any of them were advocating for them to get banned. But just like us, we were like, they better get that shit taken away because if I'm not, then I should have exploited, right? So there's this weird feeling before the raid with rep where it's like, I wish there was just a like line in the sand where it was like, don't do this. Because we got that message last time. Clearly other guilds did not, right? They punished us for it. So it's not weird that we decided to not do it again when we literally did it last time. It's not a morality thing. We have done this before, but we didn't do it this time because we got punished. That's how rules and enforcement work, kind of, right? So, yeah, we were like, guys, what the fuck are we doing here? Come on, you guys were fucking calling us out last race. Now is out here fucking retweeting and tweeting pictures of us doing it, actively trying to get us fucking, like, looked at or whatever. THD and driney, I don't even know what the fuck they tweeted, but they were probably doing a lot of the same shit, right? I don't really know what they said, but if it was super bad, that's probably not good. But if it was along the same things or same lines as what they did to us last time, it would probably be, you know, they felt like they were just getting back at them, you know? Would you have played Trill on the last boss if he wasn't competing? Yes. I think Windwalker's insane for the last boss. I would have definitely played one over our second warrior. But yeah, we just didn't have access to, I mean, we did have access to him. I think, like, I don't know if this is true, but I think if we had to, like, pull rank, I guess, and be like, nah, he's not playing in that tournament, he's going to kill this end boss, I think we might be able to get away with that. But I don't want to ever do that because I respect our PvP team, and I'm pretty sure that would disintegrate that team, and it would certainly ruin the relationship between Liquid and that team forever. So I just wasn't willing to step on that at all. When the AWC started, I was like, you're doing that, you're not doing this. So we just didn't end up using him. But yeah, I think Windwalker is insane on that boss. I'm pretty sure Windwalker is probably I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but I would guess it's probably like a top 3 to 5 class on Ansurek. It's probably insane. Insane touch of death boss. Insane living. So many personals. You don't have to think about the sucks. I mean, it's just insane. Like, it's just easy. I don't know. Like, it's easy to live. It's easy to not die to, like, the raid damage or the constant mobility mechanics that are trying to kill you. And it would have had crazy damage. And it would have had a damage profile that would have been good for every part of the fight. Max, will you talk comp and stuff? DPS lizards came in unexpected for a lot of people. I mean, yeah, well, what do you want me to talk about? Like Dev Evoker? I mean, Dev Evoker just like does really good damage. Like, okay, so the whole bit with this raid, and you really saw this play out on Ansurek, is Ansurek, or just in general, probably in the most in WoW's history, there's just this damage profile that's super broken. And it's all these melee, or like, there's a few range classes that do it, that just absolutely smoke everything on top of a boss. Like, basically you just have this talent build where it's just your full single target, and it happens to be tuned pretty well. And then you can change like one talent or like 0 talents to gain infinite cleave, right? If you're wondering what class I'm talking about, it's every melee and like a few range classes. And you know which ones I'm talking about. They're just insane, right? So naturally that builds into your whole comp. All right, what class can do this? Oh, that class can't do this? It's probably not very good because you need to AoE everything in this raid. So the comp was kind of like that. Well, Devastation Evoker is kind of like that, but for ranged. And you need a few ranged, right? So, and if everything was tuned the same, wouldn't you just bring a ton of Evokers in every raid? They bring Rescue. One of their hero talents can put Renewing Blaze on another player, which is fucking stupid, by the way. Like, so broken. You have Time Spiral or Dilate, Time Dilate, Spatial Paradox. They're extremely tanky in this raid. Like, they just bring more than other... It's inarguable. They just have more utility per class you're bringing than any class in the game. It's just the way it is, right? So whenever Evokers do strong damage or healing or whatever, like, you want to bring them because they have that advantage as well, right? So why we brought DPS Evokers is that they were just sick. I don't really know if there's any other reason I have to use to, like, give you more context. They just did a ton of damage and also had a ton of utility, so it seemed good. It's just crazy that Aug is not it. Aug is great. There's just a big problem. So, actually, no. So, like, if you guys look here, I haven't ever looked at this, but I can probably show you with raid statistics why Aug is good, where Aug is good, and where Aug is bad. Actually, that's not really how it is. Let's look at a boss like Nexus Princess on Heroic. Okay, 95th percentile. So as you're seeing, single target is really balanced in this game. Really. Like, these are all relatively normal numbers, right? This happens, and also historically in WoW, single target is fine, right? There's always outliers on either side, but generally speaking, everyone can single target pretty good. Aug in this scenario isn't that OP, usually, because what Aug is doing is just picking the best class that's doing something in any ebb and might window. And when Aug really thrives are when those spikes are big. So it's actually possible that Aug would be turbo broken on single target. But that scenario would be someone is doing something like Unholy DK, like Shadowlands Unholy DK Burst, or Shadowlands Venthyr Moonkin Burst, but there's just like a different person doing it every ebb and might window. Like, if that actually existed, Aug would be fucking crazy, because it basically can turn into the best DPS at any ebb and might window, and when the peaks and valleys are super high, they can just always pick the high one and they're sick, right? Well, the reality is there's not actually a lot of classes in the raid like that right now, so they end up just being very good. So an Aug is going to be like your top 3 to 5 DPS. It's going to be way up there. It's going to be really strong when optimally played. In single target even. The problem is, so is Dev. Now, what's the difference between Aug and Dev? Doing what I just described to you well as Aug, in my opinion, is the hardest class in the game in a raid setting, and it's not close. Constant range issues. You have to find people to give them buffs at the right time. The amount of research and like data finding you need to do to actually even figure out who you're supposed to buff at the right time based on specific fights is not something a lot of people are very good at. And even for the ones that are, it's really hard to do that right? So you're making someone play the hardest spec in a raid. Okay. So you're telling me in a single target environment, I can have someone play the hardest spec in the raid, which doing any extremely hard Race to World first boss, which is the only thing I care about, you want people to be doing things as easy as possible because you want to do the boss in the least amount of time, the least amount of attempts or whatever for your guild. And if you could just make the fight easy for everyone, that's kind of what raid leaders are for and what weak auras are for and everything. Like the whole thing, what you're doing is you're trying to make the raid easy for your players so they are better at the fight, so you get better at it faster and you kill it faster, right? So you're making someone play the hardest class in the game to probably the easiest. Like, I don't know if it's exactly the easiest, but like Dev is certainly in the conversation. It's not a super complex DPS spec. They have infinite mobility. They're really tanky. If played properly, they're just good, right? Okay, well, if this class is top 5 and Aug would be at best slightly better, like oh so slightly better, what's the fucking point? You know, like, what are we even doing? Like, why would you do that? Now, that's on a single target boss. There are some bosses where that's not true. So, Brood Twister. You're going to notice here that Brood Twister, this is on Heroic. Are there any mythic logs of this? Okay, so Mythic Brood Twister, it turns out, remember the whole peaks and valleys argument? There's a lot fucking bigger peaks and valleys with a million ads spawning and separating cooldowns between classes, where Aug is like... Remember how I said Aug would be slightly better or near the top DPS in single target? In a boss like this, Aug is the #1 DPS by a fucking mile if you play it correctly. So, on a fight like this, Devastation's not close, even if it's good, because just the way that Aug works, it's just super broken on this. Okay, a boss like Silken Court. Yeah, there's some damage amps, or there's some like AoE with the bugs, but like it is a 2-target damage amp fight, meaning that there's damage amps and there is 2-target cleave damage amps. Single target, everyone's pretty close to each other. 2-target cleave, classes are nowhere close. 2-target cleave, certain classes are way better than everybody else. AoE, there are classes that are way better than everyone else. Classes with certain cooldowns on those things, it sways even more. So, on a boss like this, Aug is just way better than Dev, right? But on a pure single target boss, Aug is probably better than Dev. But I don't think the trade-off in difficulty at the Race to World First level is worth that. That was our bet. Not to mention that Dev is kind of like a little melee. What do all the melee do? Have you guys seen our Mythic Ansurek strat? We rotate in a circle, and we fucking blend everything in the melee fuck train. Dev Evokers fit in well to that. They just disintegrate off the boss and fuck everything around the boss, just like all the melee do, right? So they're like an honorary little melee dragon. So that's cool. So yeah, that's... I don't know. That's kind of a long, drawn-out answer. But if you wonder why we were playing Dev Evoker over Aug, that's why. Why did you decide to drop Shadow Priest on Queen? It just... Like, why would we bring Shadow Priest on Queen? Because we thought maybe this is one of the best classes to play on this fight and it will be in our top 20. Why we would sit it is we felt like we were wrong. Like, Shadow Priest should be really good at P2, which we were struggling with at the time. And it should be great for the Acolytes in P3, right? Well, there's just a little bit too much movement on the fight. It can get out of roots just fine, but it's just not worth it because it wasn't as good as we thought. And Acolytes turned out not needing ranged because your melee can just actually run a lap around the room and cleave everything, which is the most insane shit, by the way. But Max, have the new players you brought in this tier who performed the best? Everybody's great. This was the first tier that I felt like we could have played any of our players on any boss and been fine. We had a lot of great players, yeah. Every player killed a boss. Oh, that's crazy, yeah. Boomy seemed... Yeah, Boomy's crazy. Yeah, Boomy's definitely insane. Probably not surprising. Like, Boomy was a multiple times world champion of another game, Brawlhalla. And, like, I firmly believe that gaming skill is, like, pretty transferable. Like, I think if anyone is truly the fucking GOAT at like any game playing at the highest level, I think if they apply that same passion to another game, they're going to be fucking insane at it. And he went so hard in WoW. Like, he cared so much about WoW. I think it's probably impossible that he wouldn't have been great, right? Even though he has relatively a lot less experience than other people and he's extremely young. Yeah, but he's nasty. He's really good. Tobo, yeah, Tobo was great too. I'm sad he didn't get to end up killing the last boss. Like, we had 3 Evokers, and he was initially going to be our Druid DPS, but Druid DPS stinks. So we had him, like, pivot Evoker so we could have 3. And then, like, he just had the least gear of all of the Evokers going into the last boss. But, yeah, Tobo's crazy good for vibes. He's crazy vibes. He's the one hitting the fucking type shit and the liquid ups all the time. Fucking crazy. Anytime you rip a W, he'll give you one right back. Dude, honestly, he's so fucking weird and clearly like loves joking around and shit. I actually don't know how he survived an Echo for as long as he did. Like, I genuinely don't understand. Like, if you know how he is, if you guys listen to this raid, I have no clue how he existed in that environment. Like, I feel like he would just be in hell. Like, I'm not saying that one is, like, better than the other. It's just, like, I bet there are people out there that would really want to be in the more serious vibe and then less serious vibe, right? There are just people like that. And you may want to gravitate to one of them. Tobo is definitely one of the less serious types. So the fact that he was an Echo, I feel like... I mean, I asked him that during the raid. I was like, dude, how much did you pipe up like this in Echo? And he said, I never said a word. He's like terrified. How did the Walmart bit start? I don't know. Shaq just started saying fuck Walmart. And then I just thought about it a little bit. And I'm like, dude, fuck Walmart. It's really just that simple. Max, do you think the short breaks after bad pull strat was more of a positive or negative reinforcement for the players? Like, were the raiders more mentally relaxed? Okay, so when you're playing bad, taking short breaks and coming back, or even if you're playing good, are like, they are good for, like, this has been studied in humans. It sounds stupid saying it like that, but like, it's a very human thing that is objectively good, right? Not only does it feel good, it makes you play better. It is good. My bit with that is that we always like have 30 minutes of bad pulls minimum after a break. Dinner break, lunch break, sleep break, 5-minute breaks, piss breaks, everything. We come back, play like shit. So I'm very anti-break. It's a bit. I'm not actually anti-break, but like my whole bit is that if I were to run for office, it would just be to eliminate breaks forever. Because I hate when we play bad. You're not really a speech kind of guy, like a hype speech type shit. I think the players have their own motivations. I'm pretty sure. Like, I have a pretty, like, you know, like, I don't know, my relationship with the guild is pretty open. Like, I make fun of them, they make fun of me type shit. I'm just not, yeah, it's just not me. I'm not like a rah fucking hype guy. Like, there are guys that are good at that. And in a big group of people, you can have people that are like that. But I don't know. I feel like if I, like, dude, if I were to do that, they would laugh so hard. Max, do any of the raiders have another job outside of playing WoW? Very, very few of them. And there's a reason for that. Because if you were put into a situation in your life where you didn't need to get a job and maybe could have lived with your parents for a few years and you could just game all day every day, it's infinitely more likely you'd be good enough at something to do something like this at this level, right? It's like a chicken before the egg thing. It's not uncommon that that's the case, and it's because that was the case in the first place that they were ever able to play enough to get good enough to do this. Like, if you were just as talented as one of our players, and you focused really hard in high school, and then you went to college, and you, like, really cared about your career, and then you got a job, it turns out the 8 hours plus a day you were spending doing all that shit for the last, like, however many years, there's someone out there that was playing video games during all that time instead, and they're gonna fucking smoke you at video games, right? Like, that's just, it's really fucking easy to understand, I think. Max, do the players get a bonus for getting world first? I don't know. I think there is some kind of clause in our contract for that. They make money monthly, and then after races, I split my Twitch revenue with all of them, so I make, like, as much as I make in a normal month, and then it's, like, pretty much all ad revenue and gifted subs and... like tier 1 subs. I think maybe it's just gifted subs. I don't know exactly. No, I think it's tier 1s and primes. Like I just straight up split that with them. So I end up usually only keeping about 20 to 30% of what I make in a raid. So they make that, and when we win, they make a lot more of that money. So it's like kind of a bonus. W. It's not really a W. Like, I'm not like a benevolent, like, take all my money kind of guy. Like, it is just kind of how it has to work, right? Like, I get infinite viewership during the race world first. Is that because of me? Probably partly, but I think it's mostly them. People are watching me for us. Does that make sense? I stream all year round outside of the race world first. Do I get 50k viewers? I don't, right? I get like 5k viewers or like a little more than that. So clearly something is different. Well, we are doing the race, and I genuinely think that people are tuning in to watch our players. They watch my stream to listen to us, not me. So splitting the money only seems natural. In fact, I think if we weren't, it would develop a lot of resentment. Dratnos was so fucking good on the Liquid broadcast. Oh yeah, he was. Him and Cam's dynamic was so funny. Did you all see those After Dark segments? Like the Dora the Explorer shit and like the... Bro,
The Liquid broadcast this time hard smurfed on any other broadcast. It's not close. Also, Dratnos is, and I don't mean this any flame to any of our casters or other casters, he is the best Race World first caster, and it's by a lot. Like, he is the person the closest to the ground doing this stuff. He raids in, I think, the highest ranked world guild of any of the casters, so he's literally doing the thing closest to what is being done that he is talking about. And he is a naturally fantastic broadcaster of all kinds, but like, he is great at casting these kinds of things. He is the fucking goat at that. He's doing tricks on that shit. Like, he is owning. I hope he gets a raise. Let's see. He messaged me before the race and he was like, hey, I'd like to do your race. All right, cool. Let me message my guy. What's your rate? And then he messaged me his rate. And then, look, here we go. Here's the... Okay, I don't want to show you the amount, but, like, here's the conversation. I'm like, because I'm typing between two different people. By the way, I love typing messages to two different people like I'm a raven. And then he said, lol. And then here's what he said. When I showed him your rate. Oh, nice. Lamau! Dude. Imagine someone seeing your day rate as a caster. And they're like, oh, that's fucking very reasonable. You know? So Dratnos got fucking owned by that. That's good. But yeah, I can only imagine that Dratnos' asking price for the next race for whoever he casts for is going to be significantly higher, because I think not only was he obviously the GOAT, but I think he had a very noticeable impact on Team Liquid channel's viewership. Because there were not a lot of... The production team snapped on this race, but they've kind of always snapped. He's one of the only things from last race to this race that changed. And it went up a lot. And when I hear people talking about it, they mention him specifically a lot. So I think he did really good. What is it? Dash being on was fucking awesome. Yeah, Dash clearly watches the race a lot. I have a weird... Okay, so Dash, I'm pretty sure this was Dash, but I was at the LCS finals in Houston, and I met one of the I know a few of the LCS casters. I'm pretty good friends with Azael, and I know Captain Flowers decently well. I've been to dinner with them a few times. They're cool dudes, but I didn't know a lot of the other LCS casters, so I got like introduced to Dash, and Dash like... He didn't, like, big boy me or anything. He just, like, met me, and he didn't know who I was, which is, by the way, totally fine. No one should know who I am. And I didn't have any kind of reaction to that. I just met him, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Hey, man. And I was like, my name's Max. And then we moved on. Whatever. All right. Fast forward to this race. I'm doing an interview on the couch. And he is asking me these questions that are so detailed and really fucking good, by the way, that... I can tell that this guy has watched, like, basically every race for the past, like, 4 years. And not only that, but he, like, understands on a deep level what's happening, as if he raids all the time at a high level himself, right? He was killing that shit. And then that made me think, when he met me in Houston, he, like, definitely fucking knew who I was. So was he actually big boying me by being like, hey, bro, what's your name? Do you know what I mean? Was he like fucking... What was happening with that? Like, did I get big boyed? I think I did. Because I feel like... Or maybe he's a huge Echo fan or something. I don't know. Like, I don't fucking get it. But yeah, it's good. He seemed cool. It was fun. It was a nice interview. Max, you couldn't pull Flowers? I messaged Azael about it. I DM'd him before the race. Honestly, I like... Oh yeah, no, he hit me up. He said... That'd be dope. I don't think I can cast this time. He's in Hawaii for his anniversary vacation, and then he's going straight to Worlds for 42 days. Holy shit. So yeah, he couldn't do it. I didn't reach out to Flowers. I actually meant to. I even said on stream I was going to, and I forgot. But I mean, obviously he had to go to Worlds as well, but maybe he could have stopped by initially. Dude, oh my god, if we could have killed any of these hard bosses, and then Flowers casted it... I mean, no, this is not shade to any of our casters. I hope they would never take it this way. But, like, I'm pretty sure Flowers would be Like, him casting a boss kill would go fucking stupid. Like, it would be the best clip of all time. Like, it would be... I don't think anyone could probably do that better than him. Like, if he actually knew about WoW rating and cared about what was happening, was casting it, like, with the same passion he does League, bro, that would feed families. Max, how many of these races come down to intangibles, vibe, momentum? Did this race feel good from the start? I don't actually understand what you just asked me at all, except for did this race feel good from the start? But yeah, we felt pretty confident the whole way through. After we started waking up the first few days without them making it, like, gaining any ground on us, if that makes sense. Because that's, like, you expect that to happen in these races. I mean, I guess that's a stupid thing to say. Like, hey, if someone's going to beat you, they're probably going to have to gain some ground or you're going to have to lose some. And that just wasn't really happening. So that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. What leads to winning races? Probably just, like, playing good and making good decisions and stuff. Soothing voice carrying me to sleep. Bro, you probably don't want to hear my voice right now. My voice is cooked. Honestly, I'm cooked right now. I need to sleep, like, really bad. Are you shocked Echo still hasn't killed it? Not really, no. They went to bed. They ended their day behind where we ended our day almost every single day of this tier for 2 straight weeks. So for them to kill the boss tonight would mean they would have to end at the same place they ended at the end of our day, and that just hasn't happened. So it is not surprising, no. But I honestly, near the end of the day, I did think they were going to kill it. They were finding a lot of damage, but it's really hard to kill bosses that hard when you're that tired. It is not the kind of boss you want to, like, play late into the night on. Like, for example, if we hadn't killed that boss in 30 minutes, we probably would have went to bed. We weren't worried about them killing it before we woke up, and that's the kind of boss where we would have instantly killed it when we woke up. So it would have, we would have definitely done that. Max, do you think the comp is the reason? No, I don't think your comp matters at all. Like, even if I were to say, like, oh, our comp is so much better, bro, we beat the fucking brakes off of that boss. Like, we beat the Enraged by, like, 15 seconds. Like, you could have killed that without a raid buff. It didn't matter. Max, how are you guys able to do that much damage in P1? Echo was lusting in P1, yet their P1 damage was barely beating you. They definitely had more P1 damage than us. Our best, like, P1 pull was 60.3, and I think they had, like, a 59 point something. But they were lusting some people in P1, so naturally they should have gotten those numbers. But they were lusting 3 players. Yeah, but lusting 3 or 4 players is going to take your boss down by a % or 2, like, for sure. Lust is insane. But yeah, they definitely would have gotten it a pretty low, yeah. How do you only lust a few players? Well, everyone in the raid after you wipe reses, except for the 4 people who you want to have lust on the pull, and then you res and lust all of them, and they get a lusty buff, and the people who are dead do not. Lust has, like, an infinite range in an instance, but not if you're dead. It doesn't hit you if you're dead. Or like the sated debuff doesn't hit you. So you do that, and then you res after you lust. Now you have no lusty buff, and now you can pull the boss, and you can lust on the pull, and everyone else will be sated, so they won't get lust on the pull, and they can use it later. This has been used for Star Augur. There was a couple of other bosses where this was really popular, where you had, like, it's actually frequently used as a healer lust. Usually bosses aren't super hard tuned where you actually want, it's so tight of a DPS check that you want to lust certain DPS at certain times at another. You almost never do that. Where this has been done before was it's actually for healer lust. So you'll do something like for example, lusting on pull for healers is stupid, right? Like, when as a healer have you gotten lust on pull and you're like, all right, this is an important part of the fight to heal, right? It's not. So typically you want lust at 30% on Star Augur. Lust was insane for healers. So what you did is you lusted your healers at the beginning of the boss. Everyone else rezzed, and then they lusted on pull, and then you waited 4 minutes, and then you pulled the boss. The reason why I hate doing this is waiting the minutes in between pulls instead of just pulling right away makes me want to blow up. It makes everyone want to blow up. It ruins your consistency. It makes people not lock in. It's terrible. It is something in my opinion, it is something you should do only under absolutely dire circumstances, because it is the most progression-killing move you can possibly do. It absolutely ruins your flow. Hey, Max, what's the plan for Team Liquid since the race is over? I don't know, like, go back to doing regular stuff, like what we were doing before. I don't know, what do you want me to say to that? Like, go camping? We're gonna go camping. Dude, honestly, this is gonna come across as slander, but camping sucks. I'm sorry if that like offends you, but like camping is only fun and interesting because people used to live in the Stone Ages without any internet or like infinitely more fun like access to like entertainment. You know what I mean? Like there's some value in the being disconnected from the world and nature and camping and all that shit. But like, let's keep it a buck, bro. The amount of people camping is going to go down significantly in the next like 20 years than like what people did from like 1980 to like 2000. It's that has to be true because there's just more shit you can do. It's, you know what I mean? Like your parents and stuff, they didn't have video games when they grew up. They just like played with dirt and shit. You know, they just went outside and kicked dirt around. That's what they did. That was the most fun thing you could do back then. I'm mostly kidding, but man, I bet there's some people in here who are pro camping that want me dead. Please don't kill me. We're all part of one cult. We can all have different hobbies and interests, except for camping. Max is a glamper? I can't believe I just read that without knowing what that means. Please, please tell me that does not mean something obscene. What does glamper mean? Oh, fucking please, God, not be something bad. Oh, it's just like bougie camping. I'm so glad that wasn't like a sex thing. That could have so easily been a sex thing. Max, if no one else manages to kill Ansurek tomorrow, are you guys going to take world second on the reclear? Nah, we're flying home Tuesday. Now, first of all, Echo's going to kill this boss instantly when they wake up. Second, if they didn't and no one killed it this reset, in parentheses, this won't happen, Echo's definitely going to kill it. We might do that, because they did that to us in Battle of Dazar'alor, bro. They beat us in Battle of Dazar'alor, and they fucking, like, BM logged on the next day for reset and, like, played as early as they could in the morning just to kill it again. That was so fucked up, man. I would definitely do that to them if I ever had a chance, for sure. Max, do you think Method could beat Echo to world second? No. They're pretty far away. I think Method played pretty good this tier, but I don't think they really have a chance of beating them on this boss. And that's not any flame to them. I think Method has gotten a lot better at, like, doing these bosses. But, like, this boss, what's required from you at the end of this boss isn't even just doing it. It's, like, it's just the level of damage optimization is something you can't be good at until you practice. And, like, I don't know if Method has ever actually had to, like, do the level of optimization that is needed to do this. And a lot of it, some of it can be copied, but they're also playing a different comp. So they'd have to do a lot of that themselves. And I just think it'd blow my mind if they found a way to find the damage before Echo did. Because, like, Echo's just been doing this forever, right? So this raid is helping Method be better in the future. Oh, yeah, every guild is going to get better from this. This raid was so hard. This raid was insanely hard. The only raids in, like, modern WoW that took longer than this and had more pulls than this were Tomb of Sargeras, which, kind of a bad example because it was a really long time ago. And, like, just for reference, if, like, those raids were to come out today and we had never seen them before, they would get fucking shit on. Raids have gotten a lot harder since then. Gamers have gotten better, stuff like that. You get it. Okay. The only other thing you can compare it to is Sepulcher. And Sepulcher only had 200 more total attempts than this raid did. And this raid only had 8 bosses. This raid was fucking crazy. This raid was insanely fucking hard. So anyone who did this raid is going to be better going forward because it turns out, like, doing really, really hard. If you were to say, like, how do you get better as a Race World First Guild? If you were to, like, perfectly get better, it would be doing really, really hard raid bosses, like, infinitely. And the more you did, you would just be better. You know, that's how this works. There's just not a lot of opportunity to get better because this happens every 6 months. Do you think the difficulty will hold up well as the tier progresses, or will it get trivialized by buffs and gear? So eye level will really, really help you on Ansurek and Ky'veza, right? Like, what's the hard thing about Ky'veza? Oh, when you get under 10%, you instantly die. Well, having 10 more eye level, it's going to be a lot harder to get to 10% health. That being said, bro, you could give a lot of the top 100 world guilds right now the max level of the scaling buff and a lot of eye level, and they would get fucking slaughtered by Ky'veza. Ky'veza is a psychotic fight. That is an insanely fucking hard fight. That boss will need to be nerfed. I think Blizzard is thinking right now that they I think they're thinking right now that like, oh, like it's a sludge fist type boss. Like we'll just get more gear and that will naturally nerf it. No, that boss mechanically is not okay. It is simply the daggers are just too fast. That guild, like you guys know how Denathrius, you finally killed Denathrius when everyone in your guild could live the massacre lines, the red lines, and that was like no matter how much gear you had, it was kind of the great equalizer. You could be a million eye level, but you were always going to get one shot by that, so you just can't kill it until everyone in your raid figures that out, right? That exists on this boss, but it's just way harder than Massacre and happens way more often. It's way harder than Massacre. And it's like earlier in the raid. I mean, it's like twice as hard as Denathrius, probably, as a boss. And it's like the third to last boss in the raid. Like, that boss was crazy. Max, I heard you say your guild's weakness in the past has been dealing with really hard bosses. Are you proud of your team's improvements this tier on really hard bosses? Well, yeah, right? Because this was one of the hardest raids ever, and we absolutely smoked everyone. I feel like the answer to that has to be yes. But I don't think our weakness before was not doing well on hard bosses, because, well, we were really fucking good at doing that. We won, like, multiple Race to World firsts, killing hard bosses faster than other people. So we were good at that. I think more what I was really saying, and I think I know what anecdote you're talking about, was we made decisions on really hard bosses, 300 plus pull bosses, where you would figure something out and then you would just be fully focused on the next thing. And that works for bosses that are even like second to last bosses, or like if Halondrus and Ky'veza and Ansurek and Blackhand are 10 out of 10 difficulty fights, you can do that on 9 out of 10 difficulty fights, where you just move on to the next thing and you're focusing on problem solving and you're going to kill the boss so fast that you don't really need to optimize what you're doing earlier. What we struggled to do on end bosses was we got a working P1, but we didn't refine it. Because on less hard bosses, you don't need to refine it. But on a hard boss, it's insanely important that the first thing you decide to do, or very quickly after you do it, it needs to be very consistent and as good as it can be. And this evolves throughout all of progression. And the reason why is on an end boss, the last phase might be really hard, and you have to get to the last phase to get really good at it. How do you get to the last phase? You have to increase your success chance in an early phase. So even if you have a working P1, you don't need to make a working P1. You need to make the best P1. You need to make your P1 as good as it can be. And this tier, we were fucking amazing at that. Insanely good at that. And honestly, I think one thing we changed was we allowed Zevi to raid lead. And I just got to like look at the boss from so many different players' perspectives and see things that looked sketchy rather than just from fired ups, and actively make changes about how people were approaching the boss and how they were looking at mechanics, and sometimes literally how they were using their camera, either being top down or like more linear, and improving their consistency by changing the way that they're playing, right? And not that's a minor thing. The major thing is probably just having time to just watch our P2 while we're still getting consistent in P1 and make our P2 better while we're doing P1 at the same time, right? Is this Sevi's insanely good? Yeah, of course. By that argument, would it make sense to have like a 21st or 22nd man? I mean, yeah, that's what Echo does, right? They moved Roger out of the raid, who in my opinion is definitely one of their better players. And they moved him out of the raid, so they had 2 of those people. I'm not in that guild. I have no idea how effective that is, but it sounds like it's plausible. It's certainly a lot harder. It's really hard to find people that are good enough to play in the raid at this level. It is even harder to find people who could be out of the raid and actually provide a large impact. And like Zevi is one of those people, absolutely. But he's also just one of our best players, so I think it's better to have him in the raid. Max, what do you think about Prez Evoker compared to other healers? I'm not the person who runs healing in our guild. That's Lummel, and he's really good at it. But obviously, I keep an eye on that. But yeah, Prez seemed pretty good, so we ran a couple of those things. It's extremely broken, yeah. They probably need to nerf that thing a lot, and it would probably still be really good. Max, unnerfed Halondrus or Princess, which is a harder boss? I think Halondrus? It's really hard to compare them. They're like trying to do totally different things. Like the damage check on Princess was objectively harder than it was on Halondrus, but Halondrus was such a long and intense and at the time a very unique kind of fight that was hard for very different reasons. I mean, they're both 2 of the hardest bosses of all time, and
they're both really hard in different ways. I don't know. I could make something up and just pick one of them. I guess maybe Halondrus. I have no clue. He doesn't read YouTube chat. Yes, I do. Why do you guys keep fucking... Okay, it's because I ignored you guys for 2 weeks, but I ignored Twitch mostly too. Why do you guys fucking say that? Come on, man. Come on now. Max, what's your take on Moonkin? Echo and Method are running one. Why did you not decide to run one? I don't know. I think Druid DPS stink. I don't know if Guardian Druid's necessarily better than Blood DK or what they were getting specifically out of Prop Paladin, and I just didn't want a DPS or Healer Druid anywhere near my raid. Max, what was the feather that broke the camel's back for switching to 1 tank on Princess? Wiping low with 2 tanks and then realizing that we probably couldn't kill it that way. It's a pretty big fucking feather. A feather of math, but yeah, so like on a boss like Ansurek, you can find infinite damage on bosses with a lot of ads. But on a boss like Princess, there's not a lot of damage you can find. It's very concrete. We actually probably could have killed it 2 tanking, but it would have required like extremely good RNG. Like we could have wiped for 2 days before we got a pull that was good enough. Basically, the idea is it's actually really, really similar to Rygalon. Do you guys remember Rygalon? Us and Echo were on Rygalon, and they chose to learn how to 4-heal it, which was going to require relearning. But they felt like if they could just live to the end of the fight, it would die. But we decided to keep 5-healing. And we just beat the DPS check 5-healing. Right? But then we ran into that annoying shit where it had like the variable enrage timer, and we should have 2-shotted on that day, but randomly our 0.6% wipe on the second pull of the day, it enraged at 7 minutes and 6 seconds instead of 7 minutes and 11 seconds like every other pull of the day. And we ran into that weird problem, and if we would have 4-healed, it never would have been a problem. So Princess was the same idea. Do we pull this boss all day and try to get lucky? Or do we take half a day to relearn it and just 1-tank it? And if we can keep everyone alive to the end with 0 battle reses and use them all in the tank, we can kill it. By the way, on one of the most mechanically hard fights ever. Everyone just lived the whole time. It took a long time to learn how to do it, but once we got there, we knew we had the damage, so. Max, when you win a race by this margin, how closely do you monitor the progress of other guilds after you have won? Oh, we were staying up late last night watching Echo Pull. During the raid, not really. I don't know. Dude, honestly, I don't really know what happened. Like, I think we definitely played really well, but we didn't, like, do anything majorly different. We just, like, didn't really have a bad boss or a bad day. We just kind of did good on the whole thing. It is surprising to even me that we fucking just absolutely obliterated every guild. I don't know why, really, but that's cool. Did someone post the picture in my Discord? Let's see. Someone added me. Oh yeah, here it is. So this was us at 6 a.m. last night. Just fucking watching Echo in one of the review rooms on the couch. I bought like almost $200 of Taco Bell. I was so hungry. Well, not for me. I did not buy $200 of Taco Bell for me. They were all also very hungry, and Heidi was asleep. So naturally, we had no idea how to feed ourselves. So I just went and got Taco Bell. Yeah, stay big, truly. Just tanking $200 of Taco Bell.